There are moments when the soul hears a sound no human ear can catch. And in that moment, you either run or you follow it into the dark. The snow came early to Elk Hollow that year, blanketing the Colorado Valley in a thick silence that felt more like a warning than a wonder. Locals said the mountain wind carried stories if you listened long enough, some true, most tragic. But no one was prepared for what happened that December afternoon. Sheriff Dale Foster never believed in signs. Not after 20 years in the Army, and certainly not after losing his wife to a drunk driver on County Road 9. But when he saw the German shepherd digging, frantically, desperately, in the middle of the abandoned Blakely Cemetery, something in his chest twisted. The dog's paws were raw, its fur soaked in blood and snowmelt. Around it, other dogs gathered, watching, waiting, and when that last claw scraped wood, a sound rang through the valley like a church bell in hell. Welcome to the HeartForce channel, where you and I find more meaning in life through dog stories. Before we continue, please comment below and let us know where you are listening to this video. And if you have any dog stories of your own, feel free to share them with everyone. 2 days earlier, Dale Foster had been nothing more than a ghost in his own town. The former Army Ranger had moved to Elk Hollow 5 years ago after his wife, Monica, died. He'd taken the job as sheriff not because he needed the money, but because solitude in the woods didn't quite smother the guilt. The townsfolk respected him, even admired his quiet strength. But they also knew better than to ask him personal questions. Every morning, he walked the ridge above his cabin with a thermos of black coffee and his father's old Winchester slung over his shoulder. It was routine, predictable, empty, until the day he heard the howling. It wasn't just a sound, it was a plea, raw, hollow, desperate. At first he ignored it. Just another coyote, maybe a stray dog. But it didn't stop. It grew louder each night, always in the same direction, northwest, toward Blakely Hill, where the old mining cemetery sat forgotten. Locals avoided the place, said it was cursed. Dale didn't believe in curses. He did believe in patterns, though. And this howling wasn't random. On the 4th day, he saddled up the town's borrowed snowmobile and made his way up the icy trail. What he found changed everything. There, in the cemetery's frozen earth, were 3 German shepherds. 1 digging, 2 standing sentry. All were injured. One had a bullet graze on its side. Another limped, favoring its left hind leg. But it was the 3rd one, the one digging, that made Dale's heart stop. It was like watching someone grieve. Not something. Someone. The dog's movements weren't wild. They were deliberate. Emotional. Every scoop of earth flung behind it had purpose. And when it reached the coffin beneath the snow, it stopped. Head bowed. Chest heaving. Dale approached slowly, hand hovering near his holster, not out of fear, but instinct, as if entering sacred ground. The shepherd looked up, and in its amber eyes, Dale saw pain he recognized, the kind you can't outrun, the kind you carry like a rucksack full of ghosts. That's when the dog let out a sound Dale had never heard before. Not a bark, not a growl. A moan, long, low, mournful. The other dogs joined in, not as a pack, as a family. What the hell happened to you? Dale muttered, lowering himself to one knee. The digging dog stepped back, revealing what it had unearthed. A child-sized coffin, half-rotted, splintered. Dale's breath caught. No graves were registered here in decades. Then, as if on cue, the lid creaked open. Inside, wrapped in tattered cloth and pine needles, was a girl no older than 10. Her skin was pale, her hair matted with dirt and snow. But her eyes fluttered. Alive. Barely. They moved fast after that. Dale radioed for EMTs, but they were snowed in 3 hours away. No choice. He carried the girl to his snowmobile, the shepherds trotting beside him like guardians. She was ice cold, but breathing. As he rode back down the mountain, the dog pressed itself against the girl's body to keep her warm. At the town clinic, Dr. Marlene Bishop, Elk Hollow's only doctor, took over. Hypothermia, exposure, and dehydration, she murmured. But this girl's alive. I don't know how. Neither did Dale. The girl didn't speak, didn't respond to touch or light. But when the shepherd, the one who dug her out, entered the room, her fingers twitched. They're connected, Marlene whispered. That dog saved her. No, Dale said, watching the animal settle beside the bed. That dog found her. That's different. He didn't know how right he was. That night, Dale sat outside the clinic watching the snowfall. The shepherd sat next to him, close but not touching, as if waiting. Who are you? Dale asked aloud. The dog tilted its head. I've seen soldiers do what you did. Dig through rubble. Hold on to hope when it made no sense. But you're just a damn dog. The shepherd looked up at the sky, then back at him. And in that gaze, Dale didn't see an animal. He saw a mirror. And maybe, just maybe, a second chance. Dale Foster had faced death in combat, held friends as they bled out in the dirt of faraway places. But this was harder. Watching a silent little girl lie motionless in a clinic bed, while a German shepherd refused to leave her side, scratched at old wounds he thought he'd buried. The girl still hadn't spoken, still hadn't opened her eyes. But every time Dale walked into the room, the dog, whom Dr. Bishop had started calling Valor, would lift his head, ears twitching, as if waiting for orders. His two companions stayed close to the clinic's back alley, rarely venturing beyond the shadows. 3 of them, Marlene had said, watching from the window. It's like they're keeping watch, rotating shifts, almost like soldiers. Dale didn't laugh. He couldn't. That's exactly what they were acting like. Word spread through Elk Hollow fast. A girl buried in the snow, found alive in a forgotten cemetery, and a trio of dogs who had no collars, no owners, and no logical explanation. Folks had questions. And when small towns have questions, they don't ask, they speculate. At Mason's Feed and Grain, Sheriff Foster became a topic of whispered conversation over coffee. I heard the girl's eyes are black. Demon black, murmured Harold Riggins, a conspiracy theorist since before internet forums existed. Nah, she's probably some runaway from up north. That whole place went dark after that meth bust in Sanborn County, replied Lenora, the grocer. But the most dangerous voice came from behind the butcher counter, Paul Brixby. Those dogs, he said, gripping the blood-slick cleaver tighter than necessary. They're wild. Strays. Dangerous. Ain't natural, them digging up graves. They should be put down before someone gets hurt. That word, put down, followed Dale home like a bad smell. Valor never left the girl's side. Dale slept on the bench just outside her room, catching only an hour or 2 each night, his service pistol resting on his thigh. He wasn't sure who he was protecting her from, strangers, the town, or maybe even himself. But then, something changed. The girl stirred. It was just a flutter of the eyelids at first. Then a trembling hand reached for the blanket, and when her eyes finally opened, they weren't black. They were green, bright, piercing, terrified. Valor stood immediately and placed his chin on the edge of the bed, tail still, gaze locked on hers. And for the first time, the girl spoke. Just one word. Hero. Dale's breath caught. It wasn't the dog's name. Not technically, but it fit. Somehow it felt right. He stood, cautiously entering the room. Can you tell me your name, sweetheart? She blinked slowly, eyes moving between Dale and Valor. Then quietly, I don't know. They kept her at the clinic another 3 days. She was malnourished, dehydrated, and showed signs of prolonged exposure to cold. But the biggest concern wasn't physical. It was psychological. She's showing symptoms of acute trauma, Marlene explained. Might be memory loss, or selective amnesia. Something bad happened out there, Dale. Something her brain doesn't want to remember. Dale nodded. But she trusts the dog. She only trusts the dog. That afternoon, Dale found the girl sitting up for the first time, Valor's head resting on her lap. She had a coloring book in one hand, a crayon in the other. She hadn't drawn anything yet, just held them. Mind if I sit? Dale asked. She didn't answer, but she didn't say no either. He's Saturday, you called him Hero. Is that what you want to name him? She looked at the dog, then nodded. He found me. He came back. Back from where? She frowned, eyes flickering with shadows. From under. Under what? She pointed at the floor. The cold place. I was there with the voices. Dale stiffened. What voices? But the girl said no more. Just laid down again, pulling the blanket to her chin, Valor curling beside her like a living shield. Back at the sheriff's office, Dale pored over missing persons reports. Nothing matched. Not from Colorado, not from Wyoming or Montana. No recent kidnappings, no girls fitting her age, her build, her face. It was like she'd appeared out of nowhere. And what about the coffin? That splintered, rotting box they found her in. It had no official record. No name, no burial permit, nothing. The grave itself wasn't registered in any town archives. He called in a favor from a friend at the State Patrol. They sent a team up to Blakely Hill. The site was cleaned up. The coffin taken to forensics. And still, nothing. Empty. No fingerprints. No DNA matches. No identification. It was like the girl had been buried in a hole made just for vanishing. And yet, Valor had found her, dug for her, fought for her. Now he guarded her. Dale had served with dogs before. K9s trained for war, for search and rescue. He'd seen brave ones, loyal ones. But this was something else. He watched Valor for hours some nights, noting the way he listened for every sound, reacted to every shift in the girl's breathing. The other two shepherds, whom Marlene had nicknamed Brick and Whisper, always kept their distance. But Valor never moved more than a few feet from the girl. There was a bond, something ancient, sacred, and Dale felt something unfamiliar creep into his chest when he watched them. Hope. That night, someone broke into the clinic. A window shattered. The alarm blared. Dale arrived in minutes. Weapon drawn. Inside, nothing was stolen. Nothing touched, except the girl's room. The door had been forced open. Glass was scattered across the floor. But the girl was untouched. Hero, Valor, had blood on his mouth. And in the hallway outside, Dale found a trail of bloody footprints leading back into the snow. Whoever had come for the girl had left in pieces. The morning after the break-in, the town of Elk Hollow woke to headlines it hadn't seen in a generation. Clinic attacked. Sheriff says child safe. Dog defends girl. The Elk Hollow Gazette didn't usually sell out. That morning it did. People whispered over cafe counters and gas pumps, voices lowered, glances sharper. They weren't just talking about the girl now. They were talking about them, the three German shepherds, and whether something unnatural was happening in their quiet little mountain town. Dale stood outside the clinic in the early light, hands on his hips, staring at the half-shattered window. Dr. Marlene Bishop joined him, her face hard. I check her myself. No scratches, no trauma. If it weren't for Valor, she'd be gone. We pulled DNA off the blood trail, Dale said. Whoever broke and didn't get far must have crawled back out toward Bear Creek Ridge. Do you think it was a kidnapping attempt? He nodded slowly. That, or something worse. The girl's still a mystery to everyone. And some people don't like mysteries they can't control. Marlene looked down the street toward the courthouse, then back at him. You know what Brixby's been saying? Yeah, Dale said with a grimace. And he's not the only one. Paul Brixby had always walked a fine line between hunter and brute. Now he crossed it. The morning after the attack, he stood at the town square with a clipboard in his meaty hands and a sign that read, "Remove the strays before they turn on US." He wasn't subtle. These dogs, whatever they are, ain't natural, he growled to anyone who'd listen. They dig up graves, attack intruders, and God knows what else. One kid in the clinic today, could be 10 in coffins tomorrow. These animals need to go. Some people agreed. Some just nodded, afraid to say otherwise. But one person finally did speak up. Her name was Clara Hastings. 65, retired music teacher, lived in Elk Hollow her whole life. She didn't say much. She just walked over, took Brixby's clipboard, and dropped in the trash. They've done more to protect this town than you ever have, Paul. He turned red, but didn't argue. Because deep down, everyone remembered the girl, and how that shepherd never left her side. That afternoon, Dale brought the girl to his cabin. It wasn't safe at the clinic anymore. Too many eyes, too many whispers. He told the town she was in recovery. Privately, he tightened patrols around his property and rigged motion sensors in the woods. Valor rode in the back seat beside the girl. Her tiny fingers curled in his fur the whole ride. When they got home, Dale showed her the guest room. Simple, quiet. A window with mountain views. She looked around silently, then turned to him. Is this safe? He crouched down, met her eyes. Safe as it gets. Nobody's gonna hurt you here. What if they come back? He nodded toward Valor. They'll have to go through him first. She smiled faintly. They won't make it. As the days passed, she began to speak more. Not about where she came from, not yet, but about her dreams. The ones that woke her at night, breathing hard, eyes wide. I see fire, she whispered one morning. Tunnels, screaming, and a man in a mask. What kind of mask? Black, with eyes like smoke. Dale felt a chill crawl down his spine. Do you remember where? She shook her head. Just that I was in the ground, but I didn't die. Dale wanted to press further, but Valor growled low. Not at the girl, never at the girl, but as if warning Dale to back off. And he did. Somehow, the dog always knew when enough was enough. 3 nights later, someone fired a shot through Dale's front window. It shattered glass over the living room couch, missed the girl's head by inches. Valor tackled her to the floor, his body shielding hers before Dale even had his gun drawn. He chased the shooter through the woods, snow crunching beneath his boots, but found nothing. Just tire tracks at the edge of the road. A getaway vehicle, most likely. Someone's escalating, Dale told Marlene the next morning. Brixby, no proof, but I wouldn't be surprised. He turned to the girl, who sat curled on the couch, Valor at her feet. I think it's time we told the town everything. Elk Hollow had never held a town hall meeting for a dog before. But that Friday night, the community center filled wall to wall. Dale stood at the front with Marlene, Clara Hastings, and the girl, now introduced officially as Hope. She'd chosen the name herself. Dale shared what had happened. The girl's survival, the break-ins, the bullet through the window, and most of all, the role of the dogs. These shepherds didn't just save her. They kept her alive. They fought for her when no one else knew she existed. And I'll be damned if I let fear take them away from her. He paused, scanning the crowd. If anyone thinks those dogs are dangerous, they'll have to go through me. The room was silent. Then Clara Hastings stood up. I say we deputize them. Laughter followed. Tension broke. Paul Brixby stood too, but this time he didn't argue. He just walked out. Afterward, Dale returned home with Hope and the dogs. She slept peacefully that night for the first time in weeks. And so did Valor, curled at the foot of her bed. Dale sat on the porch, listening to the quiet. Snow fell gently, the mountains glowing silver under moonlight. And for the first time since Monica died, he felt like he wasn't just surviving. He was protecting something that mattered again. But the past wasn't done, because 2 states away, in a dim-lit control room inside a decommissioned military lab, a man stared at a monitor. On the screen, a picture of Hope, a heat signature from a drone. Subject located, he said into the mic. Recover her, the voice replied. Alive. A pause. Then, preferably, Hope had never been happier. She'd started laughing again, real, belly-deep laughs that echoed through Dale Foster's cabin like sunlight after a long storm. She and Valor were inseparable. They walked together along the forest line each morning, played fetch along the river's edge, and curled up near the fireplace every night. Whisper and Brick, the 2 silent shepherds, stood watch from the shadows like stoic guardians, their eyes always scanning, listening, sensing. For once, it felt like they had outrun the darkness. But darkness has a way of remembering where you live. It started with a tremor, a low rumble deep beneath the mountain, so faint it barely registered on Elk Hollow's old seismograph. But Valor felt it. He sat upright in the middle of the night, ears pointed toward the horizon. Then Brick followed. Then Whisper. Hope stirred in her bed. They're coming, she whispered, not fully awake. Dale heard the noise too, a soft hum, like power surging through buried wires. He checked his perimeter cams. Dead. All 4. Then came the flicker. The house lights blinked off. Then on. Then off again. It was like the mountain itself had taken a breath and was about to scream. They came from the North Ridge. Not locals. Not hunters. These men moved with precision, boots silent, gear matte black. Rifles sleek and untraceable. Dale knew the type. Government contractors. Ghost unit. They didn't knock. They breached. Explosives blew the gate off its hinges. A flashbang cracked the porch railing. Whisper lunged into the first man's leg before he could cross the threshold, sending him sprawling into the snow, screaming. Brick took 2 bullets in the side, but kept moving, teeth bared. Dale grabbed his shotgun and shoved Hope toward the rear crawl space. You don't stop moving unless one of them stops you. Understand? She nodded once, eyes wild. What about you? How about backup? Valor launched through the smoke like a missile, jaws locking onto the throat of a masked intruder in the kitchen. The man didn't even get a scream out. Dale moved like the soldier he used to be. He fired once through the hallway, dropped his second attacker. Then he spun, taking a third down with the butt of his weapon before ducking behind the old piano. 3 in the rear, 2 in the east wall. Dale whispered into his earpiece. Their fanned-out, standard sweep pattern. He wasn't talking to a person. He was talking to Valor. The shepherd turned his head once, acknowledged the call, and vanished into the darkness. Hope crawled through the frozen tunnel beneath the cabin. Her breath misted in the air, her heart pounding like a drum. She felt a hand grab her ankle, but it wasn't human. It was Whisper. The shepherd nudged her forward gently, herding her toward the exit beneath the woodshed. Brick limped up behind them, bleeding, but alert. He blocked the tunnel entrance with his body. He was going to buy them time. Hope looked back. No, he'll die. Whisper whined once, then nudged her forward again, and Hope ran. Back inside the cabin, Dale was running out of shells. He ducked behind the overturned table, heart thundering. Then he heard the growl. Not just 1, 3. The dogs had returned, and the invaders were panicking. Target is not alone, one voice crackled over the radio. You said it was a girl and a cop. There's something else down there. It's like the signal cut. Dale heard screams, then silence. 30 minutes later, it was over. For bodies. 2 injured, 1 unconscious and zip-tied in Dale's shed. Whisper had a torn ear. Brick was stabilized, but weak. Valor didn't have a scratch. Hope sat beside Dale, her arms wrapped around her knees, eyes wide. They found me, she said softly. Dale nodded. Yeah, but we're still breathing. So's Brick. That means they didn't win. I know who they are, she whispered. He turned. You remember? Not everything, but I remember the place. She stared into the fire. They called it Project Echo. It was underground. Bright lights. Doctors in suits. Lots of kids. Some never came back. Dale leaned in. Why you? I could hear things, she whispered. Things people weren't saying. They didn't like that. I think I wasn't supposed to make it out. And the dogs. They weren't supposed to make it either. Hope's memory returned slowly over the next few days. Valor had once belonged to the facility. He and other shepherds had been trained as part of a classified behavioral study involving high-empathy animal response. The project's goal: create dogs that could predict distress, react to human emotion, even sense life and death. They tried to shut it down, Hope said. Something went wrong. The other dogs got sick. People started disappearing. Then there was a fire. Dale listened in stunned silence. And you were buried, he said finally. Hope nodded. One of the techs tried to save me. Hid me in a crate. Put me in the back of a supply truck. But they caught him. They could bury the whole thing. Me included. Dale rubbed his face. Jesus. I was dying. But Valor found me. He remembered me. He came back. She smiled faintly. Even after all that time. Later that night, Dale and Marlene stood in the woodshed interrogating the last surviving attacker. The man was uncooperative until Whisper growled in his direction. Then he talked. They were mercenaries hired to retrieve a high-value subject from an off-books experiment in 2013. Translation. They wanted the girl. Dale had enough. We're done hiding, he said. They come again. We don't bury him. Marlene looked at him, grim. You realize what you're up against? Yeah, but I've got more than bullets on my side. He looked at the shepherds. I've got them. That Sunday, the town held a prayer vigil. Not for the girl, for the dogs. They lit candles in Mason's church. Whisper stood at the altar, watching quietly. Brick sat wrapped in bandages at Hope's feet. Valor stood in the aisle, silent, eyes steady. And as the congregation sang, Hope turned and whispered to Dale, Do you believe in miracles? He looked at her. After this week? He nodded slowly. I believe in German shepherds. Spring came late to Elk Hollow that year. The snow stuck longer than usual, as if reluctant to let go. But even winter can't hold back what's meant to grow. Hope had healed more in 3 months at Dale Foster's cabin than she had in years of silent suffering. The darkness still crept into her dreams some nights. But now she had weapons against it. Laughter, warmth, the sound of paws pacing at her door, the scratchy rhythm of Whisper's tail against the floorboards. Brick's slow blink when he approved of something. And always, there was valor. She trusted him more than gravity. And in some quiet way, so did Dale. The government never came back. Dale's interrogation of the captured mercenary, followed by a very public handoff to the state police, made one thing clear. Elk Hollow wasn't going to play by his silent rules anymore. Word spread fast through unofficial channels. Leave the girl alone. Some stories aren't meant to be cleaned up. Some ghosts don't stay buried. Still, Dale never let his guard down. Every day, he walked the perimeter. Every week, he cleaned the shotgun. But every month, he took Hope to the ridge above the valley. The same ridge where Monica, his wife, used to take photographs. Where he once stood alone with coffee and grief. Now, he stood beside a girl who giggled at clouds. One afternoon, as they looked out over the thawing lake, Hope said something that brought Dale to tears. "I think I was sent here for you." But peace never lasts forever. Brick had been limping more each day. Whisper had gone deaf in one ear. Valor, though strong, had slowed down just enough for Dale to notice. And then it happened. A wildfire, started by lightning, swept up the eastern ridge. The flames devoured the old pine forest in minutes. Winds whipped the fire toward the west side of town, fast enough to outpace sirens. The evacuation order came through just after midnight. Dale and Hope packed quickly important documents, food, first aid. Marlene took the town evacuees toward the church on the North Pass. But something was wrong. "Where's Valor?" Hope asked. Dale scanned the tree line. Nothing. Then a bark. Then two. Then, howling. Dale whispered, "They're not leaving." Hope ran outside. "Valor!" She sprinted into the trees before Dale could stop her. He followed, heart pounding. They found the dogs by the river crossing, cut off from the fire's path by a fallen log, barking towards something on the far side. A family of deer, trapped against the rocks. A mother and 2 fawns. Their escape blocked. The dogs had gone back to help. Dale stared, stunned. "They're trying to herd them out. I have to help them." Hope cried, stepping forward. "No, you can't." But she was already in the water, waist-deep, Valor by her side. The heat roared behind them. Trees cracked. The sky lit orange. Then it happened. The log bridge collapsed. The fire reached the far side. The deer fled upstream, and Valor stayed behind. He shoved Hope back toward Dale, and then turned to face the wall of flame. They never saw him again. They buried Valor's collar beneath the tallest pine on Dale's property, the same one where Hope liked to sit and read. Whisper and Brick stood beside the grave for hours. Hope didn't speak for 3 days. Then one morning, she rose before dawn, dressed quietly, and walked alone to the pine. Dale followed but didn't interrupt. She stood there for a long time. When she returned, her voice was calm. "He didn't die," she said. Dale furrowed his brow. "Hope, he didn't die," she repeated. "He stayed, to keep the fire from following us." Dale crouched beside her. "I know it feels like that, honey. But sometimes even the strongest have to let go." Hope shook her head. "No," she whispered. "He didn't let go. He just went ahead. So we'd be safe." 2 months passed. Hope began to draw again. Not just trees and rivers, but dogs. Dozens of them. Big, proud, loyal. And always one with amber eyes. "He still visits me," she said one night as Dale tucked her in. "When I have bad dreams. He pushes the dark away." Dale kissed her forehead. "I hope he visits me too." The cabin became a home. Not just a place to live, but a place to heal. Whisper and Brick grew slower, softer. Hope called them old gentlemen and insisted they were scars when she read to them. Dale smiled more. He still patrolled the woods, still carried the old Winchester. But his heart had changed shape, broken, healed, reshaped into something stronger. People came from nearby towns to hear the story. Marlene wrote a book. Clara organized the Day of the Dog each spring. They called it Valor Day. a day to remember the one who stood between death and a little girl's future. Years later, on Hope's 18th birthday, she stood at Valor's tree and laid a single red tulip on the grave. "I remember," she said, "and I'll make sure the world does too." She became a veterinary nurse, opened a rescue shelter, called it Amber Eye's Sanctuary, and every animal she saved, every wounded, frightened creature, was a tribute to the one who saved her. Because sometimes, the ones who walk with us the shortest leave the deepest prints. This story reminds us that family isn't always blood, and heroes don't always wear uniforms. Sometimes they walk on four legs, speak only through their actions, and love us with a loyalty that reshapes our hearts. The bond between Hope and Valor wasn't just about survival. It was about trust, sacrifice, and the healing that comes when you finally let someone in. We all carry scars, but when someone, human or dog, refuses to leave your side, even in the fire, that's when we begin to heal. That's when we stop running. That's when we remember that we're not alone. If this story touched your heart, we'd love to hear from you. Please comment below with your thoughts and share your own stories of canine courage and companionship. And don't forget to subscribe to the HeartForce channel, where stories like this remind us what truly matters.